What if I told you that counting calories might actually be sabotaging your weight loss? Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what science is showing. The real issue isn't the number on your plate. It's a silent hormone that decides whether you store fat or burn it. For decades, you've been told that eating less and exercising more was the magic formula. But while you're killing yourself on the treadmill and living hungry, this hormone is still calling the shots on where those calories go. And guess what? If it's out of control, it doesn't matter how hard you try, fat won't budge. Now, here's the good news. There's a simple trick to get insulin on your side. No crazy diets, no starving yourself. Stick with me until the end, because you're about to discover how small daily changes can completely transform the way your body handles fat. The old idea that gaining weight is just about eating too much sounds convincing, but science tells a different story. Research, such as studies published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation in 2019, shows that fat cells only grow when insulin is present, even in the face of a caloric surplus. In other words, it's not just about how much you eat, but about the hormonal environment inside your body. Now, think about this. When insulin is high, your body sends a clear command: store fat. That's why so many people counting calories and walking miles see little to no results. They're addressing the tip of the iceberg. As studies from the American Journal of Physiology in 2021 point out, the true regulator is insulin, and ignoring this is like trying to stop a leak with a bucket full of holes. Want a simple example? Picture two people eating the same amount of calories. One starts the day with bread, juice, and sweetened coffee. The other goes for eggs, avocado, and black coffee. Who's more likely to store less fat? Research published in Diabetes Care in 2020 suggests that those who keep insulin levels lower have the advantage. This is one of the most overlooked metabolic fat loss tips. This opens the door to understanding that the root of weight gain isn't purely mathematical. And once you start seeing obesity through this lens, the next revelation could completely change the way you approach diet and exercise. For decades, we've heard that obesity is a matter of willpower. But research, such as studies published in 2020 in Endocrine Reviews, shows that this reasoning is outdated. The root of the problem is hormonalist, especially when it comes to insulin. You can run yourself to exhaustion or cut 500 calories a day. But if insulin stays high, your body interprets it as a signal to store fat. Imagine someone waking up early to run 3 miles every day and still seeing no real change on the scale. It's frustrating, isn't it? That effort, while positive, doesn't fix the hormonal trigger that keeps the metabolism in storage mode. The body isn't a calculator, it's an orchestrand. Insulin is the conductor setting the tempo. That's why understanding how to lower insulin is an essential step for anyone who wants lasting results. And don't be mistaken, this doesn't mean exercise has no value. On the contrary, it's an important piece of the puzzle. But counting calories alone doesn't solve the issue, and studies from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2021 confirm this. When you focus only on numbers, you ignore the biochemical signals that tell your body to store fat even when calorie intake is under control. Want real proof that insulin is the gatekeeper of fat storage? Just look at a phenomenon called diabulimia discussed in studies. Like those published in the Journal of Eating Disorders in 2019, it refers to people with type 1 diabetes who deliberately reduce insulin and experience drastic weight loss even while consuming a high-calorie diet. This is not an endorsement of dangerous practices, but it's clear evidence of the central role this hormone plays. When insulin is limited, the door to fat storage simply doesn't open. Think of it like a vault. Without the key, nothing gets in. And insulin is precisely that key. That's why, in controlled medical situations, the absence of insulin leads to rapid weight loss, while elevated levels do exactly the opposite. This isn't a matter of belief, it's pure biochemistry. Now bring this to the real world. How many people do you know who follow restrictive diets but see no changes in their body? They may be fighting numbers on the scale when the real battlefield is hormonal. This concept completely shifts how we think about insulin weight loss. After all, it's not about how many calories you eat, but what determines whether those calories are stored or burned. And here comes the big question. How can we use this knowledge in a practical way without resorting to dangerous solutions? The answer lies in safe strategies to lower insulin and improve metabolic sensitivity. And one of these tools is old, simple, and surprisingly challenging at the same time. When it comes to lowering insulin, One of the oldest and most studied strategies is fasting. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2019 shows that controlled periods without food reduce insulin levels, improve cellular sensitivity, and help restore hormonal balance. But while it sounds simple, not everyone is ready for this practice, and that's where the challenge lies. Imagine someone who decides to try a 16-hour fast from dinner to lunch. At first, it might feel like a win. Fewer meals, fewer temptations. But for those with a busy schedule, family obligations, or mentally demanding jobs, it can be a minefield. Skipping breakfast before a long commute or an important meeting can lead to discomfort and a drop in focus. Here's an interesting point. Fasting isn't magic on its own. It works because it addresses the hormonal root, not because it mechanically cuts calories. By lowering insulin, it creates a more favorable environment for the body to burn fat as fuel. But that doesn't mean it's the only solution. Like any tool, it needs to fit real life and be combined with smart choices, something many people overlook when jumping into extreme protocols. This is just one example of how metabolic fat loss tips go far beyond numbers on the scale. But for those who can't incorporate fasting into their routine, there are strategies that can create a similar effect without skipping so many meals. And these alternatives might surprise you. If fasting doesn't fit your lifestyle, here's some good news. You can use simple strategies to help control insulin without going hours without eating. Research from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition 2020 shows that small changes in meal timing and composition can significantly impact hormonal levels. In other words, you can influence this metabolic maestro with practical adjustments. For example, one effective tip is to start meals with protein and fiber before eating carbs. This sequence reduces insulin spikes, according to studies published in Diabetes Care in 2021. Another trick is taking a light 10-minute walk after eating something as simple as strolling around the block. This practice helps muscles pull glucose from the blood, reducing the need for large insulin surges. It may seem small, but over time, it makes a real difference. Also, rethinking your morning drink can be a game changer. Swapping juice for water with lemon is a choice that evidence suggests can help stabilize the insulin response. It's not about living with harsh restrictions. It's about learning how to lower insulin intelligently and sustainably. The cumulative impact of these small actions is what creates consistent results. None of it requires extreme measures. These strategies are so practical, you can start applying them today without disrupting your schedule, suffering from extreme hunger, or obsessing over numbers. And once you begin making these adjustments, you'll notice something interesting. Not all challenges come from main meals. There's a little-known phenomenon that happens before you even get out of bed. Few people realize that something fascinating happens while you're still asleep. Your body, in a nearly strategic move, ramps up cortisol production in the hours leading up to waking. This phenomenon, known as the dawn effect, was documented in studies published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism in 2019. The result, a spike in blood glucose, which increases insulin resistance right as you wake up. Now picture this. You roll out of bed, head straight to the kitchen, and have a breakfast loaded with simple carbs, bread, juice, and jam. What happens next? Your body, already under the influence of cortisol and elevated glucose, gets an extra push to release even more insulin. The outcome, your chances of storing fat skyrocket early in the day. It's like starting a race with a weight tied to your feet. Why does this matter so much? Because many people believe the timing of their first meal doesn't make a difference. But data shows that this early window is a sensitive period for those aiming for insulin weight loss. It's no exaggeration to say that how you manage the first 2 hours of your day can set the metabolic tone for the next 12. And here's the thought-provoking part. If the morning already puts you at a disadvantage, is it really worth reinforcing that with the wrong choices? The answer points to a simple yet counterintuitive shift that might completely change what you think having breakfast really means. Early in the morning, your body is still under the influence of elevated cortisol, and that means greater insulin resistance. According to studies from endocrinology and metabolism clinics, if you consume simple carbs at this time, like white bread, juice, and sugary cereals, you dramatically increase the chances of storing fat. It's like giving your body the green light to stockpile energy. But don't worry, this doesn't mean you have to skip breakfast forever. Want a simple fix? Go for foods rich in protein and healthy fats, like eggs and avocado. This combo triggers a much smaller insulin response than that bowl of cereal with milk. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2021 shows that starting your day with protein helps keep you full longer and prevents hormonal spikes. You can also add fiber, such as veggies or chia seeds, to make your meal even more balanced. Another practical adjustment is to delay your carb intake to times when your body is more insulin sensitive, like after a walk or light workout. It doesn't have to be extreme. A 15-minute stroll around the neighborhood can already change the way your body processes glucose. This is one of those metabolic fat loss tips that can make a big difference without demanding drastic sacrifices. Small tweaks early in the day create a ripple effect for the rest of your day. And this brings us to a counterintuitive strategy. Maybe the best move isn't just changing what you eat in the morning, but rethinking when you eat. It might sound strange, but delaying your first meal of the day is one of the simplest ways to improve insulin sensitivity. Studies published in Cell Metabolism in 2020 suggest that waiting at least 90 to 120 minutes after waking reduces the impact of the morning hormonal spike. In practical terms, it means giving your body time to stabilize cortisol before introducing food. How can you apply this in daily life? Instead of rushing to the kitchen as soon as you open your eyes, start the day with a glass of water, some light stretching, and, if possible, a short walk. These activities signal to your body that it can use stored energy rather than stockpiling more. This strategic pause is an easy way to learn how to lower insulin without resorting to long fasting periods. What if you feel hungry? One option is to stay occupied with light tasks, like tidying up or answering emails until that window passes. Most of the time, that initial hunger is more psychological than physical. When it's finally time to eat, prioritize protein and healthy fats to keep insulin in check. A plate of scrambled eggs, avocado, and a drizzle of olive oil is far better than bread with jam. This small habit might seem harmless, but the metabolic difference is huge. And when you learn how to choose what to eat after that waiting period, you'll realize that the traditional sugary breakfast might be sabotaging your goals without you even noticing. Few people link poor sleep to weight gain, but the connection is direct. Research published in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine 2020 shows that sleeping less than 6 hours a night raises cortisol, the stress hormone. This increase, in turn, elevates insulin and triggers stronger cravings for simple carbs. It's as if your body is shouting, "I need quick energy." Want a practical example? Think about the last time you slept poorly. What was the first thing you craved in the morning? Probably a sweet coffee or something carb-heavy, right? That's not a lack of discipline, it's pure biochemistry. To keep hormones balanced, aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. A dark room, a temperature between 65 - 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and a screen-free nighttime routine help more than you think. Another tip is to keep a consistent sleep and wake schedule, even on weekends. This consistency strengthens your biological clock and reduces hormonal fluctuations that interfere with insulin weight loss. Studies in Diabetes Care 2019 indicate that sleep deprivation can reduce insulin sensitivity by up to 30%, making fat loss harder even with diet and exercise in place. Now think about this. If something as simple as good sleep can change the game, imagine how other factors like the effect of caffeine might influence this hormonal balance without you even realizing it. When cortisol spikes, it doesn't act alone. This stress hormone stimulates proteins like NPY neuropeptide Y and AGRP, which increase cravings for energy-dense foods. Frontiers in Endocrinology 2021, in simple terms, poor sleep or stressful days don't just mess with your mood, they crank your appetite up to maximum. That's why after a chaotic day, a plate of veggies sounds far less appealing than a bag of cookies. How can you handle this? One practical strategy is to plan healthy snacks for high-pressure moments. Keep protein and healthy fat-rich options on hand, like nuts or boiled eggs. These choices help stabilize the insulin response and reduce the urge for quick carbs. Another useful tactic is light exercise, such as a 10 to 15-minute walk, which naturally lowers cortisol levels. Interestingly, cortisol also affects dopamine, the neurotransmitter tied to the feeling of reward. This means that when you're stressed, your brain seeks quick rewards, and guess what? Sugar and ultra-processed foods are the perfect shortcut. Understanding this mechanism is key for anyone trying to lose weight without counting calories, because it shows. The battle isn't just against food, it's against your body chemistry. Now, if cortisol alone can disrupt hunger this much, imagine what happens when we add another common morning factor: caffeine. Does it help or does it hurt this hormonal balance? Many people start their day with a cup of coffee, believing it helps with focus and even boosts metabolism. But here's an interesting fact. Studies published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition 2021 show that caffeine can increase the insulin response, especially when combined with carbohydrates at breakfast. In other words, that sweetened coffee paired with bread or cake creates the perfect setup for fat storage. Does this mean you should quit coffee? Not necessarily. The drink itself isn't the villain. The problem lies in the context. If you love coffee, drink it unsweetened and avoid pairing it with high glucose foods early in the morning. Another practical tip is to save it for after the first 2 hours of the day. Once cortisol levels have dropped, this small change can help reduce unnecessary hormonal spikes. Additionally, for those looking to learn how to lower insulin, replacing some coffee with green tea might be a smart move. It also contains caffeine, but offers catechins compounds linked to improved insulin sensitivity. According to research published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry 2020, and if your goal is to boost energy, cold water, hydration, and deep breathing exercises upon waking can give you a solid kickstart without disrupting hormones. Now, if the combination of caffeine and carbs can sabotage your day, how much influence does that first meal have, not just on the next few hours, but on your eating decisions all the way into the evening? What you put on your plate in the morning creates a domino effect for the rest of the day. A balanced breakfast helps control hunger, insulin levels, and even mood. According to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, poor choices can trigger hormonal spikes that lead to cravings just a few hours later. In other words, it's not just about filling up, it's about setting your body up for better decisions. Want practical examples? Start your meal with a protein source, like scrambled eggs, paired with fiber and healthy fats, such as avocado and olive oil. If you prefer something quick, a shake with whey protein, spinach, and unsweetened plant-based milk is another great option. These choices help keep insulin levels stable, ensuring steady energy and less desire for sugary snacks throughout the day. Another tip is to plan this meal before hunger strikes, keeping prepped ingredients in the fridge, like boiled eggs and chopped vegetables, lowers the chances of grabbing quick sugar-loaded options. This type of organization is one of the simplest yet most effective metabolic fat loss tips for achieving consistent results. Now, what if I told you that, in many cases, skipping breakfast altogether might be even better than eating the wrong one? It's a controversial idea, but it makes a lot of sense when we look at the hormonal response. The idea may sound strange, but here's the logic. If your first meal of the day is packed with simple carbs, you trigger an insulin spike early on, paving the way for energy crashes and hunger swings throughout the day. In 2020, studies in the Journal of Nutrition suggested that, for some people, delaying breakfast helps maintain more stable hormonal levels, especially when the alternative is a plate full of sugar. How to apply this? If you don't have time to prepare a balanced meal, consider waiting until you can put together something with protein and healthy fats. In the meantime, stay hydrated. A big glass of water right after waking up, and, if you like black coffee, without sugar, can help curb hunger. This way, you avoid the cycle of eating poorly, early, and paying for it later. This habit, known as light intermittent fasting, is a simple tool for those aiming for insulin weight loss without overcomplicating their routine. And it doesn't have to be extreme. Even a 2-hour delay can make a noticeable difference in the insulin response. The key is understanding that quality matters more than quantities when it comes to breakfast, but if you decide to eat, there's a powerful trick to keep insulin under control. Start with protein. Want to know why this strategy works so well? Starting your first meal with protein is one of the most effective strategies for controlling insulin. Studies published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition 2021 show that eating protein before carbohydrates reduces glucose spikes and prolongs satiety. In other words, it's a simple trick that helps you lose weight without counting calories and keeps your body in hormonal balance for hours. How does this work in practice? If you usually eat bread for breakfast, try changing the order. Have eggs or a protein shake first, and then, if you're still hungry, add complex carbs like oats. This sequence alone makes a difference in insulin control, according to research on people with insulin resistance published in Diabetes Care 2020. Want another idea? Prepare a plate of scrambled eggs with vegetables and a little cheese, paired with unsweetened coffee. For those who prefer something sweet, natural yogurt with whey and low glycemic fruits is another great option. The goal isn't to eliminate carbs completely, but to use them strategically, keeping hormonal responses under control. This kind of simple change, combined with other metabolic fat loss tips, proves that healthy weight loss isn't about eating less, it's about eating smart. Now that you understand how insulin influences fat storage, tell me, will you keep counting calories and feeling frustrated, or start applying strategies that actually make sense? Which of these tips will you try first? Adjusting your breakfast, waiting 2 hours before eating, or testing small daily changes to keep this powerful hormone in check? Think about it. Every choice you make throughout the day can bring you closer to the body and health you want. So why not start today? Share in the comments which insight was the most valuable for you. I'd love to follow your progress. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep getting content that will transform your relationship with food. This content is for informational purposes only and does not replace professional medical advice. Results may vary. Always consult a healthcare professional before making drastic changes to your diet or training routine.